जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यमुना तीरा वनचारी। यमुना तीरा वनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपीजना वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। जय गोपीजना वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यमुना तीरा वनचारी। यमुना तीरा वनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan Radhe. Jai Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jai Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladev, Jaya Subhadra. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Haribol. Jai Vishnupada Paramamsa Parivrajakachauri Stotra Sata Shri Srimadi's Divine Grace Labhay Charana Aravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupada Paramamsa Parivrajakachauri Stotra Sata Shri Srimadi's Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त बंद की जाए। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जाए। ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की जाए, नवदीप शिमाय प्रधाम की जाए, पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जाए, गंगा माँ यमुना माई की जाए, वृंद देवी तुलसी महारानी की जाए, श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जाए, श्रील प्रभुपाद ट्रांसेंडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की जाए, द मोस्ट मर्सिफुल लॉर्डशिप श्री श्री राधा मदन मोहन जी की जाए, द मोस्ट मर्सिफुल लॉर्डशिप श्री श्री गौनिथाई की जाए, द मोस्ट मर्सिफुल लॉर्डशिप श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्र महारानी की जाए, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जाए, समवेत गौर भक्तबंद की जाए, निथाय गौर प्रेमानंदे. All glories to the assembled bodies, all glories to the assembled bodies, all glories to the assembled bodies, all glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrutyam Naram Shaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 22, entitled Prithu Maharaj's Meeting with the Four Kumaras, text number 22. Don't we have a permanent arrangement? When the power goes? Otherwise there is no, this one, what is that called? No. Inverter. Battery inverter doesn't exist here. Sad Shad Shraddhaya Bhagavad Dharmacharyaya Shashraddhaya Bhagavad Dharmacharyaya Jijñāsaya Dhyatmika Yoga Nishtaya Jijñāsaya Dhyatmika Yoga Nishtaya Yogeshwaropasanaya cha nityam Yogeshwaropasanaya cha nityam Punyashrava kathaya punyaya cha Punyashrava kathaya punyaya cha. Shri Shri Gaunitaya Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai. Shashraddhaya Bhagavad Dharmacharyaya Jijñāsaya Dhyatmika Yoga Nishtaya Yogeshwaropasanaya cha nityam Punyashrava kathaya punyaya cha. Shashraddhaya Bhagavad Dharmacharyaya Jijñāsaya Dhyatmika Yoga Nishtaya Yogeshwaropasanaya cha nityam Punyashrava kataya punyaya cha. सा श्रद्धया भगवद्धर्मचर्यया जिज्ञासयाध्यात्मिकयोगनिष्ठया योगेश्वरोपासनया च नित्यम् पुण्यश्रवः पुण्यया च सा श्रद्धया भगवद्धर्मचर्यया जिज्ञासयाध्यात्मिकयोगनिष्ठया योगेश्वरोपासनया च नित्यम् पुण्यश्रवः पुण्यया च सा श्रद्धया भगवद्धर्मचर्यया जिज्ञासयाध्यात्मिकयोगनिष्ठया योगेश्वरोपासनया च नित्यम् पुण्यश्रवः पुण्यया च. Any Matasis? Godhead, and by hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These actions are pious in themselves. Please repeat. Attachment for the Supreme can be increased by practicing devotional service, inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, applying Bhakti Yoga in life, worshipping the Yogeshwara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These actions are pious in themselves. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, the word Yogeshwara is applicable to both the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna and his devotees also. In the Bhagavad Gita, this word occurs in two places. In the 18th chapter, 1878, Krishna is described as the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, who is the master of all mystic power. Yoga Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha. Yogeshwara is also described at the end of the 6th chapter, 647, Same Yuktatamo Mataha. This Yuktatama indicates the topmost of all yogis, the devotees, who can also be called Yogeshwara. In this verse, Yogeshwara Upasana means to render service to a pure devotee. Thus, Narottam Das Thakur says, Chariya Vaishnava Seva Nistara paeche keba. Without serving a pure devotee, one cannot advance in spiritual life. Prahlad Maharaj also has said, Naisham matistava durukramangrim sprushanti anardhopagamo yadarthaha mahiyasam padarajobhishekam nishkinchananam na vrinita yavad. One should take shelter of a pure devotee who has nothing to do with this material world but is simply engaged in devotional service. By serving him only, one can transcend the qualitative material condition. In this verse, it is recommended, Yogeshwar Upasanaya, that one serve the lotus feet of the topmost yogi or the devotee. To serve the topmost devotee means to hear from him about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the mouth of a pure devotee is to acquire a pious life. In Bhagavad Gita 7:28, it is also said that without being pious, one cannot engage in devotional service. Yesham tvantvagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandvamoha nirmukta bhajanti mam dhrudavrata. To become fixed in devotional service, one has to become completely cleansed from the contamination of the material modes of nature. For work in devotional service is the first item is for work in devotional service, the first item is Adav Guru Ashrayam. One should accept a bona fide spiritual master. And from the bona fide spiritual master, inquire about one's transcendental occupational duties, Sadharma Pricha, and follow in the footsteps of great saintly persons, devotees, Sadhu Marga Anugamanam. These are the instructions given by Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami. The conclusion is that to increase attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to accept a bona fide spiritual master and learn from him the methods of devotional service and hear from him about the transcendental messages and glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this way, one has to increase his conviction about devotional service. Then it will be easy to increase attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Ajnanatimrandhasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vansha Kalpatarobhyasya Kripa Sindhubheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabho Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langaite girim yat kripatamaham mande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam. So here Sanat Kumar, the leader of the four Kumaras, is answering to the enquiries put forward by Prithu Maharaj. The enquiries must be apt, and when the enquiries are apt, then also the answers will also be very, very apt and appropriate. Like in the material circles, we sometimes call this is $1 million question. Or kaun banega crorepati. So when the person asks the question, everybody is attentive and then there is a background music that is played to make it more interesting and more attentive. And sometimes our devotees also get into this kind of thing, and they say, "Kaun banega Krishna?" Krishna Bhakta. So they're imitating this Kaun Banega Crorepati program. So that is just to generate interest in the people. So that is why we call $1,000,000 question. So similarly, what is a $1,000,000 question in the spiritual circles? Spiritual circles, people don't ask how to increase our money, which is the best investment plan, where the rates of the lands are increasing, which is the most developing place, and these are not the important questions for spiritual circles. Spiritual circles, they are always interested in the welfare of the people who are in this world, rotting in this world. So that is why in any part of Bhagavatam you see, this question is common. What is that? How the people in this material world can be delivered to the lotus feet of the Lord. What is the easiest way? This is what the sages of Naimisharanya asked. This is what Parikshit Maharaj asked. And these are these are the questions which are put forward by any intelligent person will ask this question, because it's such an important question. How to extricate the living entity from this most difficult tabernacle of material existence. So he also asked, Prithu Maharaj asked, how this human society can be delivered from the material existence. It appears that sometimes we hear the same thing again and again, and then the repetition is good because we don't get it. We are third class intelligence people. That is why Shastra says, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama iva kevalam kalau nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatiranyataha. What is the need for them to say it 3 times, repeat 3 times? So similarly, our intelligence is very less, very, it's also spoiled intelligence, manda buddhi. So we need to be told. So that is why any great personalities they discuss these things only, which are beneficial. Atah, it is said, what is that in the first canto, second chapter, what is that sloka, that your questions are by themselves very virtuous. Punaya Munaya sadhu prishtoham, Munaya sadhu prishtoham, Bhavadbir lokamangalam, Yatkrita Krishna samprashno, Yatma suprasidati. My dear sages, the questions that you have asked are very, very wonderful questions. Munaya sadhu prishtoham. Why? Because they are related to Bhavadbir lokamangalam. 2 things. One is they are beneficial to the people of this world because they are questions about Krishna. Yat krita Krishna samprashno. Hardly we find people asking spiritual questions. गोल गोल मार के वही से materialistic questions ही पूछते हैं. The true spiritual insight is very much missing in people. They don't actually, the sign of an intelligent person is what pertinent questions they ask. That is why it is said pariprashnena, not just prashnena. So that is what is mentioned here, that he is putting forward very beautiful question. So Sanat Kumar appreciated him. The kind of personality you are, you know the answer to this question, but still you are asking this question. That tells the character of yourself. So what is the question? How people in this world can be delivered from the material existence? So directly he is answering that question in these 2 verses, text 22, text 21. Text 21 he says, I know we have discussed yesterday, but just in context I am referring. It has been conclusively decided in the scripture, after due consideration, that the ultimate goal for the welfare of human society is detachment from the bodily concept of life and increased and steadfast attachment to the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental beyond the modes of material nature. So the effort must be there to detach oneself from the bodily concept of life and also to attach oneself to the Supreme Lord. Detachment from the matter, attachment to the Lord. But if you try to exclusively focus on detachment from the matter, you'll never be able to achieve that. So rather, the acharyas, they take us to the lotus feet of Krishna by different activities, and those activities are mentioned here. Attachment for the Supreme can be increased by practicing devotional service, inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, applying Bhakti Yoga in life, worshipping the Yogeshwara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These actions are pious in themselves. So in 2 verses, he has completely answered this question. Sanat Kumar. So they are not just applicable at that time, but they are applicable even right now. That if we want to extricate ourselves from this material existence, these steps have to be followed. And Srila Prabhupada is very beautifully elaborating on this 22nd verse. So we'll go with Srila Prabhupada's purport. First of all, Prabhupada is saying, worshipping Yogeshwara, or it is mentioned, what is that? Yogeshwara, Yogeshwaropasana. Yogeshwara Upasana. So, Prabhupada is saying that Yogeshwara Upasana is not just worshipping the Lord alone, but Yogeshwara Upasana also is extended to the pure devotees of the Lord. In fact, we cannot worship the Lord separately without worshipping a pure devotee. It cannot be conceived. Sometimes we have some Mayavadi people who are worshipping the Lord without worshipping a pure devotee. Somebody floats Jai Giridhari, he says. And he only have one Krishna. Nobody anywhere. Prabhupada said Krishna is never alone. Krishna is always with his pure devotees. They cannot be separated from Krishna. If someone tries to separate pure devotees from Krishna, that means he doesn't understand what is Krishna consciousness. So, for our sampradaya, it is more important that we worship Krishna by worshipping an acharya. Because the purpose of worshipping Krishna, why do we worship Krishna? Or why do we hear about Krishna? It is simply to increase attachment for Krishna. If you want to go back to Krishna, if you don't have attachment for Krishna, how can you exist in Krishna Loka? So, Bhagavatam very emphatically states, Susrusho Shraddhadhanasya Vasudeva Katharuchihi Shan Mahatsevaya Vipra Punyatirtha Nishevanat. That one must render service to pure devotees. Susrusho Shraddhadhanasya. Then what happens? Vasudeva Katharuchihi. The attachment for the Vasudeva Katha, to hear about Vasudeva Katha, increases when we worship or when we serve pure devotees. People are more interested in doing external worshipable things than actually eager to hear about the glories of the Lord. That eagerness does not come about because they don't worship the devotees of the Lord. The sign of somebody's attachment for the Krishna Katha is that they must have taken a devotee very seriously and they must be worshipping the devotee or following the devotee with all their heart and soul. Then their attachment for Krishna Katha will increase. Ritualistically hearing from someone is one thing, that is of no much use. But one must hear on the edge of their seats, sitting, like how these sages of Naimisharanya heard Srimad Bhagavatam, how Sukadev Goswami and others, how Parikshit Maharaj and others actually they heard Bhagavatam so much, with so much concentration, that Sukadev Goswami, when he was speaking, Maharaj Parikshit did not remember the hunger or any other thing. That one complete week, 7 days, he did not bother about the necessities of his body. So there is so much potency in Krishna Katha when it is described by pure devotees of the Lord. So one must find a pure devotee and accept him as spiritual master, inquire from him and hear from him. So Srila Prabhupada is saying the same thing here in the purport. What is that? In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami is saying, actually there are in 64 principles, the first 4 principles or 5 principles are related to spiritual master only. These are the most essential principles. Adau Guru Ashrayam. First you must seek the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Seeking the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master is not getting some kind of a stamp. One must feel inspired that this is a person that I can surrender to. And when you actually come in contact with such a person, all the negative things will come out automatically without your effort. The black patches in our consciousness gets exposed. Just like a dark room is exposed, its darkness is exposed when it is exposed to light. So this kind of a feeling everyone must get, not by majority of vote. And it's very unfortunate that, if anyone is spreading by majority of vote, you accept someone as a spiritual master, we are doing great disservice. We are not actually making them enjoy the process of actually finding their own spiritual master. I have this spiritual master, so you also accept this person as spiritual master. You found your spiritual master, let him find his spiritual master. Why are you pushing him on him? This is the greatest disservice we can do to anyone. So there must be deep spiritual inquiry, as a result of which one approaches a bona fide spiritual master. So, Adau Guru Ashrayaha, and then the very next thing is that when you found such person, then what do you do? Saddharma Pruchaha. Saddharma Prucha means, it's a very important word. Saddharma Prucha. Saddharma. Not any dharma, Saddharma Prucha. That means, what is my occupational engagement for going back to Krishna? That is called Saddharma Prucha. My dear spiritual master, can you please help me how to solve the problems of my family? How to get a good husband for my daughter? These are not called Saddharma Prucha. So if we are struggling with those things, means we are still on a material realm. We are not utilizing the spiritual master's presence in our life. We have to ask spiritual questions. You can't artificially ask spiritual questions when our mind is always attached towards materialistic things. So that is why in the previous verse, what is it said? So what is said in the previous verse? One must be fully detached from bodily conception of life. If you are not fully detached from bodily conception of life, you will use spiritual master also for your material advancement. So, Srila Prabhupada is saying that one must seek the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, one must value his association, and from that association develop questions related to Krishna. Yat krita Krishna samprashno. And when you actually hear from such a person, when your heart is satisfied, the only thing that will happen in our consciousness, how can I serve this person? This question will genuinely come from the heart of a person whose inquiries are all satisfied. Otherwise, you'll always ask this question. Like when Prabhupada, when he met his spiritual master, every time he asked only one question: how can I serve you? In the beginning, when he heard from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he did not understand much. That's what in Prabhupada's own words. Especially first time when he met, he did not understand much what Bhaktisiddhanta was saying. Bhaktisiddhanta was very scholarly. His English also was very refined English. And Prabhupada did not understand much. And on top of that, he was discussing about the Upanishads. So it's very difficult. And many devotees also, one time Bhaktisiddhanta was giving class on Upanishads on the banks of Radhakund. So some of these Sahajiyas, they were very much critical of Bhaktisiddhanta. He is sitting on the Radhakund's banks and he is talking about Upanishad. What kind of a person? We should be discussing about Radha Krishna Leela. And Bhaktisiddhanta, when he came to know, he said they are not actually residing on the banks of Radhakund. They are residing on the banks of Narakakund, he said. He said that. Why did he say that? Because, you can't just simply jump discussing Radha Krishna Leela without knowing the Tattva. So that is why Bhaktisiddhanta was trying to discuss the Upanishad. Upanishads are not impersonal. Upanishads are very, they are describing the glories of the Lord in a different way. So anyway, so Prabhupada, when he heard from Bhaktisiddhanta, whenever there was an opportunity, he would hear very carefully whether he had understood or did not understand. Sometimes we think that, if I don't understand, what is the point in hearing? Hearing is a sign of submission. It is not an intellectual exercise. How much I understand with this person? You simply sit and be submissive and let Krishna's Vani enter into your heart through the speech of that devotee. That's all. So in this way, our heart gets purified. So there are two things that are mentioned in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, second chapter, about this attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dharma swanushtitah pumsha visvakshena kathasu yaha na utpadaye yadiratim shramayeva hi kevalam. That you may do so many activities. Every one of us can be busy in doing various things. But if that is not increasing our attachment for hearing, we are only getting sleep in the class, or we are not able to focus because there are so many things that are ringing in our mind. I have to do this, I have to do that. And in this process, our whole absorption is gone somewhere else, not in the class. Then what is that kind of hearing? That's completely waste of time. That is Shramaya Vahi Kevalam. Your performance of occupational duty, whatever is your occupational duty, whether you are brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi, it doesn't matter. Dharma swanushtita pumsha visvakshena kathasu yaha. It must lead you to visvakshena katha and rati. Na utpadaye yadiratim shramaya vahi kevalam. So both are talking about, the other verse is talking about Vasudeva katha ruchihi. This is also talking about the same thing. Na utpadaye yadi ratim. There it is mentioned ruchi, Vasudeva katha ruchi. Here visvakshena katha rati. Both are same thing. So by the performance of occupational duties, you must come here. Or by serving a pure devotee, you must come here. Both way you must come to this point. So whichever that you are doing, whatever action that you are doing, some people are very much interested in doing so many services. But if we tell them, it's all right, stop those services, sit in the Bhagavatam class or sit in a discussion of Krishna Katha, then they will sleep off. That's an indication that your service is not done properly with proper consciousness. If you are actually doing your service properly, you will jump for the opportunity to hear about Krishna. Some people are, they are not interested in doing any service. They're just interested in so-called hearing. What are you doing? I'm hearing and chanting, hearing and chanting. Actually, this person is not hearing and chanting. They're pretending to be hearing and chanting. Because if you are actually hearing and chanting, it must naturally lead you to serve a pure devotee. So, these are landmarks in our devotional service. How do we know whether we are doing our devotional service properly or not? Let us check. Do we have any excitement when when Bhagavatam is being spoken by pure persons? We are excited about it, or no? This is everyday thing, and what a big deal anyway. And that means that tells what our attitude is. Or do we have eagerness to serve pure devotees? Prabhupada is very clearly saying that your eagerness to serve a pure devotee is by hearing from them about the glories of Krishna. Service is not something, separate. Service begins by hearing a pure devotee. And what is the sign that you are hearing very, very attentively? Saddharma pruchaha. That we will have questions about what he is speaking. So this is Yogeshwara. Yogeshwara Upasana means basically it is serving pure devotees of the Lord. Prabhupada is referring to the two verses that are mentioned in the Bhagavatam, in the Bhagavad Gita. Yatra Yogeshwaro Krishna, Yatra Pardho Dhanurdaraha. That verse is referring to Krishna. And the other one is about Yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratmanaha shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. Krishna is giving his conclusive opinion about who is the best of all yogis. The best of all yogis is the person Shraddhavan bhajate yomam. Shraddha. Susrusho shraddadhanasya. They are all very much connected. Both Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, all verses are connected. They're only talking about only one personality, that is Supreme Personality of Godhead. How to glorify Him, how to hear about Him. Punya Shrava Kathaya Punyayacha. Punya Shravana Kirtanaha. Hridayantastohi Abhadrani Vidhunoti Surut Satam. Shrinvata Swakatha Krishna. So unfortunately, Prabhupada was very much critical about those people who made a mockery of this hearing and made it into business. This Saptaham Bhagavata. Bhagavata Saptahas are there. It's a mockery of this Bhagavatam actually. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. But they have made it into Saptaham Bhagavata Sevaya. And the whole culture of that Bhagavat Saptah is all about self-aggrandizement, collection of money, and giving some kind of satisfaction, punya satisfaction to the people who come by. Sometimes they degrade to such an extent that they make jokes about it. One particular subject they take and then they make so many jokes. And people will laugh like anything. So Prabhupada condemned this. It's a serious subject matter. It is to be discussed amongst the serial spiritual seekers. It's not some cheap material enjoyment. Sometimes they do Radha Krishna dance also in that Bhagavad Saptas. Such a great offense it is. It is not Bhagavata Saptaha, it is Bhogavata Saptaha. It is. So, people may not like such sharp criticism, but That is what Prabhupada said. That you make the whole experience into a very, very beautiful experience when you purely glorify Krishna, not having any material motive. So, here that question is so beautiful question that he has put forward. An answer has come, crisp answer has come from Sanat Kumara. That you detach yourself from the material, material attachment, and you increase your attachment for Krishna. Both bhaktir, pareshanubhava, viraktir, anyatrachaha, trika, ekakalaha. All of that must happen simultaneously. It's not that you will, you'll take 10 million lifetimes to detach and then another 20 million lifetimes to attach to Krishna. There's no such a program. Actually, we don't have qualification to hear about, these transcendental subject matters. What is our interest? But Prabhupada has described these subject matters in such a beautiful way that even a common man like us can actually understand. He has explained these purports and gave such simple examples by which the most intricate subject matters of the scripture are understood by ordinary people like us. What austerities and penances that we have performed. In modern lifestyle, there is no austerity at all. But these things are so beautifully described. All that we have to do is that just sit and hear with great attention. If you want, you read the first canto, first chapter, second verse, last part of the purport. All that you need to do is to agree to hear. Not even hear, Prabhupada is saying. Agree to hear. If you want, you can go and see. All that you need to do is. Agreeing to hear is an attitude. Hearing can be very pretentious hearing. But agreeing to hear is an attitude. I may not understand, but I want to hear. Like Prabhupada heard from Bhakti Siddhanta. I want to hear. I want to fill my consciousness with the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because there is nothing promising in this world. There is nothing worthy of repeated hearing. If you want to, go back to the sufferings of your life and, remember the sufferings of your life, you are reliving the suffering once again. The number of times that you wanted to go back and then see the sufferings, that means those many times you are living those experiences. And people are interested, because in this material world, people are only interested in negative discussions only. On negative things only we have so much of, attachment. We are very curious about negative things. So that has to completely go. I'm least bothered about what this person is doing, that person is doing, what what mistakes this person has done, what affairs that person has. I have nothing to do with all that. I'm simply interested in the beautiful concepts of Srimad Bhagavatam, which are described by great pure devotees. Such a devotee cannot be contaminated by any amount of bad association. But our antenna is erect for bad association. Otherwise, bad association doesn't come. But when you turn your antenna, naturally bad association will come and fall on you. We are eager to hear about negative about others. So obviously, how these things will stick in. These glories of the Lord will not stick in. So that is why the purification has to happen in the consciousness, and the purification happens by chanting Hare Krishna, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Then naturally what happens? Slowly, affinity towards Krishna and hearing about Krishna will come about. And all of that will be administered naturally when we take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. So every one of us must seek shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Again, I am saying it's a beautiful process of realizing who your spiritual master is, not getting a stamp. Stand in a queue, get a stamp. Initiation, ho gaya, chale jao. Initiation is the beginning of spiritual life, but in our Krishna consciousness movement, sometimes it is perceived as that is the last thing. Initiation के बाद confirmed है तो अभी कुछ करने का जरूरत नहीं, अभी किसी का बात सुनने का भी जरूरत नहीं. पहले तो उनका सिग्नेचर चाहिए ना इनिशिएशन के लिए. अभी वो सब चीज का जरूरत नहीं है. They think that they are liberated after they get initiation recommendation. This is such a poor understanding of what is Krishna consciousness. So these things repeatedly have to be discussed in the devotee circles, without fear. Oh, if I speak like this, that person will get offended. Arey, you speak anything, people will be offended. So speak about Shastra very clearly, whatever is said by the previous acharyas. But don't speak for the sake of, getting some material, material fame or name. Or don't try to speak as if you know better and then others do not know. We must speak in a spirit of service. These truths have to be discussed. Then it is beneficial. So we can discuss a lot about this verse. I did not touch some of the aspects in the purport, but the overall aspect is this. If anyone has any question or comment?
Hare Krishna. Praji, regarding that verse Dharma Sanushtita Pumsam, so I had a question. As you were saying that our services should help us to develop attachment to hearing.
Yeah.
So if that is not happening, then can you tell what are the problems, in the sense why we are not developing that attachment, and what actually we should do so that we develop that attachment?
What should we do to develop that attachment?
Yeah. And why that is not happening?
It is not happening because we are not doing it as service, we are doing it as some kind of activity, engagement. When service becomes engagement, this consciousness does not develop. Service must be service. One must be very eager to do service. In service, one must feel relationship with Guru and Krishna. One must render services in such a way that I am actually pleasing my spiritual master. If I do this, my spiritual master will be very pleased. The Vaishnavas will be very pleased. But generally, the way we do service is that, is it pleasing to me? Is it beneficial to me? So the reference point is us, then that is not called service. The first principle of service, I am not the beneficiary. That is the first principle of service. The second principle of service is that the beneficiary is Krishna and Guru. And I am doing this for the satisfaction of Guru and Krishna. So most of us do not do service in this spirit. We do a lot of activity, but we don't do. At best, some devotees can come up to the level of doing it as a duty. Oh, it is my duty. I am a brahmachari in the temple. What is my duty? My duty is not to get any profit for my service. Simply do this as a duty. Why those days devotees have advanced so much? Because Prabhupada, they wanted to see smile on Prabhupada's face. For any activity they did. Whether it is kirtan, whether it is book distribution, whether it is deity worship, whether it is, whatever it is, they were always interested in pleasing their spiritual master. So no matter whatever the fallen condition they were in, they advanced greatly because of this this opportunity to please a pure devotee. Susrusho Shraddhadhanasa. Prabhupada is saying, even a little service is done to a pure devotee, it is considered by Krishna as great service. Great service is done. Mahat Sevaya Vipraha. So that is where we have to adjust our consciousness. You know, I used to think about this. In your volume controls in an amplifier, you have a main volume control and then there are other sub controls in there. Suppose if the main is off, no matter how much you turn this from, lowest to highest, it has no effect. But the main is on, then the fine tuning can be done. So similarly, the main is consciousness. We want refinement in skills. We are not interested in refinement of our consciousness. That is the problem. And skill can be developed by anyone. If you want, even the animals also can develop much better skills than us. The machines can develop much better skills than us. But they do not have an opportunity to transform their consciousness. Only human beings are awarded that capacity to transform their consciousness. No other person. Take it for granted. No one can put effort in transforming their consciousness because that ability is not given to them by Krishna. So instead of putting our efforts in developing our consciousness, we are simply interested in developing skills. You know why we are interested in developing skills? Any guess? Huh? It's very rewarding. Skill development is very rewarding. And consciousness development is not even recognizable. There are no parameters to measure it. So that is why you are not so much interested in developing consciousness. Because it's very quickly rewarding, this skill development is. So that's where we are actually losing so much. So much effort we are putting, but then put the effort in the right direction. What is the right direction? Change our attitude. Change our attitude. Change our attitude. Prabhupada said in an act of instruction, what is the first principle? The success in Krishna consciousness is developing right attitude. We hear that, but somehow we miss it in our application. So when we actually do that, then Prabhupada's purpose, same Prabhupada purpose which we have been reading or hearing for many years, they appear quite differently. They appear quite fresh for us and new for us if we change our attitude. Same thing I'm saying. Same class you have been hearing from the same person for 10,000 years will appear new every time you hear. It's all a matter of attitude. Orienting oneself properly. So that has been my experience and then the experience of some devotees who are associated. So let us, the main button has to be that has to be adjusted. That makes some sense. Any other question? Yeah. Doing service and improving consciousness, they are not two different things. Doing service with proper consciousness means we are doing service, but we are not contemplating, we are not using our intelligence and mind whether I am doing this in a proper consciousness or not. While choosing to do certain service or while executing an assigned service, what are the parameters that come to our priority? Let us list out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very naturally. And when you actually list out those parameters, if those parameters are, some of them are self-centered, then know for sure that not much improvement is there in our consciousness. We don't even question, why am I doing? this. So sometimes we hear so many contradictory things. You should not have enough time to think whether you are advancing or not. Have you heard this? Huh? You should not have enough time. That is for an unintelligent people. But an intelligent person must contemplate, where am I going? So you have to contemplate. Hang on. Just before you jump in, hang on and see what purpose that you are doing. That is depth. Somebody is digging, here I want water. 10 feet he dug, no water. And then he went to another place, dug another 10 feet, no water. So he's very busy digging. And for the sake of showing, he will say, 20 places I dug, 200 feet I dug, I didn't get. Sir, the problem is, you did not dig at the same place. That's why you didn't get the water. That's the problem. For effort-wise, you will have big, huge masses of, mitti everywhere in 20 different places. Some time ago, I was asking some devotees, you maintain the same relationships for 10 years, next 10 years, let the goal be. Then we will know whether your Krishna consciousness is progressive or not. Same relationships. Can you maintain the same relationships next 10 years? Whichever, 4, 5, 5, 6, whatever it is. Not ayaram, gayaram business. So these are, these are very deep things. We have taken it just, we are applying, but the point is there could be a better, as I said, I really wanted to emphasize on this point. We are very much interested in skill development, not consciousness development, which is the original capacity given by Krishna to us, transformative capacity, that we are not fully utilizing. We are doing the same thing what a machine can do. Why do we have to do what a machine can do? Or what even an animal can do? Why don't we apply it on actually the capacity that is given to us? The ability to transform. All right. Anything else? Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samveta Gaura Bhakta Bandha ki jai.